So, here we are again, a couple months later, and Toho and Netflix have released a sequel to Godzilla Planet of Monsters. You know, I don't even really know if I even have a lot to say about Godzilla's City on the Edge of Battle, because in a lot of ways, it just feels like a remake of Godzilla Planet of Monsters. It repeats a lot of the same story elements, and it suffers from a lot of the same problems. Both films start with humanity recovering from Godzilla's attacks, then Haruo comes up with a plan to kill Godzilla, Metphis and Galagu have a cryptic conversation, then mechs fly around shooting lasers at Godzilla. Then by the end of the film there's a twist that leaves the characters even more fucked than they were before. I guess one notable difference is the flow of the movies are kind of reversed. Godzilla Planet of Monsters starts off great, then gets a little worse, then it starts to get pretty bad, but then it comes back around and ends really strong. Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, however, starts off strong, then gets worse, then gets pretty bad, but the end of the movie's fucking awesome. So just like the last film, the best way for me to describe Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle is to say it's a mixed bag. One thing I didn't mention in my review for Godzilla Planet of Monsters is that the animated Godzilla trilogy is written by veteran anime and visual novel writer Gen Urobuchi. Now, for those not familiar with Urobuchi, he was the mastermind behind such works as Madoka Magica, Psycho-Pass, Kamen Rider Gaim, the list goes on. Urobuchi is, for my money, one of the best writers currently working in Japanese entertainment. I think it's fair to say there are three elements that consistently find their way into Urobuchi's work. Those elements being nuanced characters, world building, and characters at odds with utilitarian philosophies. Now, what should be to no one's surprise, those elements find their way into City on the Edge of Battle. But unlike Psycho-Pass, where Urobuchi's theme served as a strength, in Toho's Godzilla anime, they become a detriment. To be clear, I don't see these failings as Urobuchi's fault. He's doing the best he can with the material. The problem is Toho is confining Urobuchi's ideas to 3 90-minute films rather than giving him a 20-plus episode series. I feel like a fucking broken record because I said this shit in my last video. The Godzilla anime should have been a TV series and not a film trilogy. Urobuchi is at his best when he has some breathing room and his characters have time to interact with each other and develop. I think Urobuchi's tendency towards world building is preventing the characters from having meaningful conversations. Rather than have scenes dedicated to characters discussing philosophical ideas or have scenes that showcase the character relationships in more detail, the character actions in Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle just boil down to dumps of exposition. Characters will talk about their plan to kill Godzilla, the biology of Godzilla, the makeup of the planet, the makeup of the creatures, the tech they're using, and every now and again they'll sprinkle in some philosophy or emotional motivation. In 2 90-minute movies, the equivalent of 6 TV episodes, Yuko and Haruo only have one scene where they discuss their relationship with any meaning.
Haruo.
Well, that came out of fucking nowhere. This scene is completely unearned because there's no build-up to it. Haruo and Yuko spend the entirety of the first film and most of the second film in spacesuits fighting monsters. They have very little interaction with each other, and the romance just comes off as fucking forced. If City on the Edge of Battle had been a TV series, Urobuchi could have set up Yuko the same way he set up Mai in Kamen Rider Gaim, which is what I think Urobuchi was going for. In Kamen Rider Gaim, Mai is the anchor that keeps Kota grounded, reminding him to always have hope. We can see hints that this was Urobuchi's intention with Yuko, specifically in this scene. Haruo acts surprised when the usually optimistic Yuko sides with the Bilusauro's plan to sacrifice themselves and merge with Mechagodzilla. What appears to be a shocking turn of events for Haruo is just kind of meh for the audience because we were never given the chance to know Yuko as well as Haruo. You know, come to think of it, Urobuchi really could have taken a lot of cues from Kamen Rider Gaim. Gaim basically takes place in a modern-day city with some added sci-fi elements. If Urobuchi had taken this approach with the animated Godzilla trilogy, he could have cut out a lot of the useless information about the planet, allowing the characters further opportunities to have more meaningful interactions. Because right now, with a 90-minute film, there isn't enough time to spend building a world from scratch, developing characters, and introducing complicated philosophical ideas.
He never signed a piece of legislation, nor did he lead troops into battle. But boy, could he get his way! Godzilla! TNT honors one of our own special heroes during an all-day President's Day celebration of Godzilla movies and tunes during TNT's Godzilla Rama.
Now, I don't want to spend too much time analyzing the themes of City on the Edge of Battle, because I'm getting the feeling this trilogy needs to be seen as a whole, and to fully understand where it's going, I need to see the third installment. But I think I'm starting to get an idea of where Urobuchi is trying to go with the trilogy by the way he uses key scenes in Planet of Monsters and City on the Edge of Battle as bookends for each other. If you remember back to Planet of Monsters, it begins with Haruo threatening to blow up a landing shuttle filled with the elderly if the mothership doesn't turn around and search for another inhabitable planet. Ultimately, Haruo chooses not to blow up the landing shuttle, sparing the lives of the people on board. They end up dying anyway, but that's another fucking story. Interestingly enough, City on the Edge of Battle ends with Haruo having to choose between killing Godzilla or saving Yuko and himself. In the end, Haruo is unable to sacrifice Yuko, and he loses his chance to finally stop Godzilla. In both films, Haruo is forced to confront the idea of allowing innocent people to die in an effort to serve a greater good. And in both instances, Haruo chooses to save the people. Which leads me to believe the movies are foreshadowing a moment in the third film where Haruo finally accepts that in order to kill Godzilla, he's going to have to sacrifice innocent lives. As I mentioned earlier, the ending of Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle is fucking awesome, and the best part of any of the films so far. Because it's Urobuchi doing what he does best, which is characters having to make difficult choices when confronted with dire situations. Okay, I've been pretty measured and fair up to this point, so I think I've earned the right to do a little venting. This is hands down the most fucked up depiction of Godzilla I've ever seen. He's hardly in the movie, and when he finally does show up, he just fucking stands there. Say what you will about Zilla, but at least he fucking did shit. And the animation on Godzilla is awful. He just stiffly moves from one pose to another. And if they're gonna cut costs by reusing a walk cycle, they need to put a little more effort in it than whatever the fuck this is supposed to be. It's so weird they screwed the pooch with Godzilla, because the animation on the human characters is great. They have very expressive faces, and their bodies display a nice range of motion. Clearly the animators are capable of doing good work, but it seems like they spent all their time animating the human characters and just forgot about Godzilla. It's like he's a fucking afterthought in his own film. Personally, I think it's the fault of the directors. Koban Shizuno and Hiroyuki Sashida are fine for Detective Conan and Blame, but they seem to have no understanding of how to use Godzilla. I get the feeling Urobuchi knew the lack of Godzilla was going to be an issue, so he tried to compensate for it with his writing. Urobuchi's script keeps Godzilla the central part of the narrative, making him the subject of nearly every conversation in the film. Going for that, we don't see him much, but his presence is always felt effect. Which is a great idea in theory, but this is the problem. If you're going to take that approach of not showing Godzilla and saving him for the end, you better deliver when he finally does show up. When Godzilla finally does appear, he's a fucking disappointment. It's like the cinematic equivalent of Blue Balls. All this build-up and no goddamn payoff. The worst thing I could say about this Godzilla is he doesn't feel like Godzilla. It's like Koban Shizuno and Hiroyuki Sashida just copied the worst parts of Shin Godzilla and Godzilla 2014. He does that roll-up thing Godzilla 2014 did, and like Shin Godzilla, he just stands there and hardly reacts when he's getting shot at. That's fucking it. There is no personality or character to this Godzilla. Remember how Heisei Godzilla used to react when people were shooting at him? Then he would get pissed off and start smashing shit? That would have worked perfectly in animation, and that would have given this Godzilla more life as a character.
This isn't an ordinary carcass. The signal, it's coming from the head. Half of the artificial intelligence unit's block is alive. We have control.
What's even worse is they introduced this idea of Mechagodzilla City, which is such a cool concept, but completely gets wasted. Mechagodzilla City is a city built out of the nanometal from Mechagodzilla and run by its AI. It's a cool location which I figured was going to be used to rectify a problem with the last movie. There was no Godzilla rampaging through a city scene. Destroying cities is kind of what Godzilla does. It's like Jason Voorhees and killing teenagers. Mechagodzilla City has so many possibilities for classic Godzilla destroying shit action. They could have had the Hotua living in Mechagodzilla City. Yeah, I know the Hotua are allergic to the nanometal, but there could have been a line of dialogue that explained certain parts of the city are less dense with the metal and it's not harmful to the Hotua. You know, any kind of bullshit like that would have sufficed. But that would have allowed the Hotua to live in Mechagodzilla City and create more interesting scenarios and use the city in a more compelling way. Haruo and the others could have explored the city while learning more about the Hotua society. Maybe the militaristic Bilu Saludo could have been angry because their destructive weapon had been converted into a peaceful home. Then Godzilla could have showed up, he could have smashed through the structures, the Hotua could have been running away fucking screaming, Haruo could have ran around trying to save Yuko or Miyana, the Bilu Saludo could have shot Godzilla with one of those cannons, knocking him back into one of the buildings and killing a bunch of innocent people. You know, shit like that. Shit that usually happens in a Godzilla movie. That would have been a cool thing to happen, right? But no, instead, Mechagodzilla City is just deserted and empty, and when Godzilla does turn up, they shoot him a little, then he destroys the city with his atomic breath. Quite frankly, I think the reason none of the things I suggested happen in the movie isn't for any story reasons. It's because it would have required the animators to make more than 2 character models for the Hotua. It doesn't take a rocket science to notice there's only 2 Hotua character models, a male and a female. I mentioned this in my last video, all they do is copy and paste the character models. Yuko and Haruo are even wearing the same t-shirt under their suits. It makes sense that the 2 Hotua females look alike because they're supposed to be the Mothra twins. But there's no reason for all the guys to look alike, it's fucking lazy. I do like Mina and Miyana though, the design is pretty cool and they're really hot and fucking badass. I need to do some Mina and Miyana Yuri fan art. You know, that's a pretty good idea. Hey, you wanna know what? You should follow Studio Chojin on Twitter and watch the Studio Chojin DeviantArt page to keep an eye out for the upcoming Mina and Miyana Yuri fan art.
There is a far greater destructive power lurking somewhere in space.
It's
Compared
Ghidorah,
to
he's
that,
talking about Ghidorah.
Godzilla wouldn't even be worth the fear.
Hey.
Ghidorah.
Ghidorah.
Fucking knew it! I'm so sick of Ghidorah in Godzilla movies. Godzilla has fought Ghidorah like 7 times already. I think it's safe to say Ghidorah is a little fucking played out. Oh hey, by the way, did you see the trailer for Godzilla King of the Monsters? I wonder who he's gonna fight. What monster? Oh. Well, at least in the sequel to Shin Godzilla, he might fight a new monster, like... Can we have a fucking break with Ghidorah as a villain? Godzilla has such a rich tapestry of monsters to choose from. Why do we keep circling back to Ghidorah? Don't get me wrong, I love Ghidorah. He's very much the Joker to Godzilla's Batman, but like the Joker, Ghidorah has been overexposed to say the least. Do you know who would be the perfect monster for Godzilla to fight in this trilogy? Think about it. It's a planet that's overrun with plant life and Godzilla-like creatures. In fact, the professor says the plant life is copying Godzilla's phenotype as a means to survive. So what kind of creature could be birthed by a planet filled with plants that are imitating Godzilla's biology? Fucking Biollante. Biollante would be the perfect fit for this series and would fit perfectly in line with the film's ecological themes. Biollante is so underrated, it's time she made a comeback. I never really felt like Godzilla vs. Biollante took full advantage of the character, and she actually seems like more of a logical protector of the planet, being that she's actually made from plant life. Biollante fucking rules. On a positive note, I do have to say, I really like the music in Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle. Both this film and Planet of Monsters were composed by Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla composer Takayuki Hattori. The mix of the orchestra and techno music is an excellent fit for a futuristic Godzilla movie, and I hope they keep this style with other Godzilla films. The soundtrack really helped to give the movie a lot of life and prevented it from feeling completely bland. The worst part about the soundtrack, and maybe it's even unforgivable, is the omission of the Akira Ifukube Godzilla theme. I don't know why they don't include it in these movies. Maybe they're trying to copy Godzilla 2014. As shitty as this version of Godzilla is, he could be improved like 60% with the right music. The Godzilla theme could even save that fucking shitty walk cycle. So, in closing, all I really have left to say is exactly what I said in my review of the last movie. I know I've been doing a lot of complaining, but the truth is, not only is the ending of Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle strong, it's the strongest part of any of the 2 films so far. So maybe there's hope. Maybe Godzilla the Planet Eater will be better. Probably not. It's probably going to be more underdeveloped characters spouting exposition, and Godzilla and Ghidorah will probably be 2 stiff CGI models that hardly move and have particle effects swirling around them. But, you know, who knows, could be good.